Pat Daniel with the SportsTalk Media Network coming to you live from Memorial Stadium up in Clemson, where the Tigers looked to come back and show people they are for real after that embarrassing loss at Duke Monday night. Today, things started off okay. The Tigers ended up winning 66-17, but that score is a bit misleading, and this game was very much so a tale of two halves. So take that with a glass half full, glass half empty, depending on how you want to look at it. The Tigers opened up the game great. 10-play, 68-yard touchdown drive, capped off by a Klubnik to Antonio Williams touchdown pass, the first of two between these two on the day. But it went sideways pretty quick and pretty hard from there for Clemson. On their next offensive possession, Dabo Swinney elected to go for it on 4th and 1 from their own 29-yard line, where once again we saw an awkward exchange between the center and the quarterback, leading to a Klubnik fumble, which was recovered by Charleston Southern and returned all the way down to the 1-yard line, where they were then able to punch it in and tie the game at 7. Charleston Southern then recovered an onside kick, but the Clemson defense, story of the day, they came out and shut them down, forced a 3-and-out, got the ball back. But on that next possession, Klubnik led the Tigers on what seemed like a good methodical drive down the field deep into Charleston Southern territory, but then he faced pressure and just made a horrible decision. He owned it up after the game. Dabo, everybody talked about it after the game, but he threw off of his back foot, seemingly gifting a pick six to the Charleston Southern defense, who returned the ball for a 67-yard touchdown to take a lead 14-7. You then heard the Boo Birds come out in this stadium. Been covering games and coming to games here for a long time. Those are some of the first boos I've heard in this stadium in close to a decade. It's been quite a while. Maybe there were a couple last 2 years now I think about it, but it's been a while. Clemson then responded just the way I would think Dabo wanted his team to respond. They came out on a 7-play, 57-yard touchdown drive, capped by a Phil Moffitt rushing touchdown. It's worth noting that whether it was Dabo, whether it's offensive coordinator Garrett Riley or what, it was a 7-play drive, 5 of which were running rushes, 2 of those were passing, both of which were short, seemingly to build Cade Klubnik's confidence back after those 2 early miscues. In the second quarter, the return game may have found its answer as freshman Tyler Brown had a shifty 27-yard return to set up a short field for the Tigers. Klubnik then connected with Antonio Williams for their second touchdown on the day, tying the game back at 14. The teams then traded field goals, and freshman Robert Goode made his first career field goal. And I apologize, it wasn't 17. The Tigers then took a 24-17 lead into the half. And then, to have been a fly on the wall in the locker room for the Tigers. They came out on fire in the second half. The Tigers scored every single time they touched the ball until the final possession of the game, where they seemingly just wanted to run out the clock. Phil Moffitt had a rushing touchdown in the third quarter, his second of the day. Then the defense had a tip drill, resulting in an interception by Wade Woodaz, who returned it for a pick six. Then the offense came back out and had a 69-yard touchdown pass from Cade Klubnik to Bo Collins. And Collins started to celebrate just before crossing the end zone. Dabo Swinney met him out on the field, was not happy. And after the game, both Dabo and Collins both mentioned kind of tongue-in-cheek that they'll be having a good conversation about that in practice on Monday. After that, a 25-yard pass from Klubnik to freshman tight end out of Greenville, Josh Sapp, who really showed some speed, and he showed a lot of promise on that touchdown. So that 24-17 halftime score was suddenly 52-17 after 3 quarters. Now going into the fourth quarter, the Tigers used their depth. They really started to get some more experience. Dabo told us after the game that every single offensive lineman that was healthy to play did play in this game. Running back Jay Haynes had an 8-yard rushing touchdown. Then on the next possession for the Tigers, Haynes had a touchdown reception from Paul Tyson, the Alabama transfer, and that was his first career passing touchdown on the of his career. Chris Vizina, the heralded freshman who we've heard all spring and summer, the plan is to redshirt him. He did come in for that final possession for the Tigers, did not attempt to pass, just handed the ball off, ran out the clock. But it is worth noting he can only play in 4 games this season to retain that red shirt, so he can still appear in 3 more games from now. Some notes on the game. The Tigers outgained the Buccaneers 679-73. I mentioned earlier that Clemson's defense was impressive. This game had to give a lot of confidence, not only to the defensive players, but also to the defensive coordinator, Wes Goodwin, who we've heard a lot of fair or unfair criticism of each of the last 2 years now after the departure of Brent Venables to Oklahoma. Starting safety Andrew Makuba has a lower body injury and did not suit up today. Dabo says that it's no big deal. He just did this as precaution, didn't see the need to risk injury. This was the first 400-yard passing game for Clemson since the final game of the 2020 season when Trevor Lawrence threw for 400 yards in that loss in the Sugar Bowl to Ohio State. 16 different Tigers caught passes on the day. That's including wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs. Although the defense only got 2 sacks on the day, they lived in the Buccaneers' backfield, recording 10 tackles for loss. Next week, Clemson looks to stay hot at home when they host the Owls of Florida Atlantic at 8 o'clock p.m. here in Death Valley under the lights, just like you see behind me. So overall, again on the day, some final thoughts. It was a tale of two halves. The Tigers definitely still have some kinks to work out. There are still some just kind of fundamental issues. Just snapping the ball, just getting the ball from the center to Klubnik has proven to be a bit difficult. And then getting the ball from Klubnik to the receivers, the tight ends, or even to hand off to the running backs, they still need to focus on those fundamentals. Dabo told us after the game that he just needs his quarterback to relax. That's all going to come with time. And he has one more week against a somewhat, no offense, Florida Atlantic, inferior opponent before the Tigers welcome in Florida State into Death Valley 2 weeks from now. Also, another note on the day, let's think. There were a couple other things. The defense, again, showed a lot of strength. They allowed 10 points. Remember, there was the one pick six, but the only touchdown the defense really allowed came from the 1 yard line after that Klubnik fumble. So although that does score against the Clemson defense, again, they allowed under 100 yards total offense on the day. They were nothing short of spectacular. Yes, again, against an inferior opponent, but still, this had to be very encouraging for not only Goodwin and the coaching staff, but also to bump up the confidence of that defense. Dabo Swinney had a number of different things to say after the game, but again, just wants his team to have the memory of a goldfish. Now that this game is over, he wants them to put this behind them, wants them to put the Duke game behind them, and now move ahead just to Florida Atlantic. Once again, coming to you live from Memorial Stadium in Clemson, South Carolina, where the Tigers were victorious over the Charleston Southern Buccaneers 66-17. This is Pat Daniel, the Sports Talk Media Network.